Viewers, let's begin with an important caveat. This is not an argument advancing the need for president or central rule for Jammu and Kashmir in perpetuity. The status quo, where the citizens of the state don't get to elect a government that is accountable to them, is not after all tenable. The fact is not lost even on the Supreme Court. While in December last year it upheld the abrogation of Article 370 in the same judgment, it also directed the Election Commission of India to conduct assembly polls in Jammu and Kashmir before September 30th, 2024. That means, viewers, assembly elections need to be conducted in the next 8 weeks in Jammu and Kashmir. Moreover, the Apex Court had also directed the Modi-led NDA government to restore full statehood to Jammu and Kashmir by that same deadline. The Union Home Minister Amit Shah, the man in charge of the nation's internal security, had no qualms with the Supreme Court order. Speaking at an election rally ahead of the Lok Sabha elections in May 2024, Shah confirmed that both farmans of the top court would be executed before the deadline lapses. The Supreme Court's decision to restore the full panoply of democratic rights is unarguably altruistic, morally and legally correct. But is it the right one, viewers? And should Amit Shah be meekly accepting every order issued at gavel point? These are complex questions, but one that must be asked. In fact, this show will argue that there is a strong case for delaying elections and for strengthening central rule over the benighted region. Over the last 32 months, 48 soldiers have been martyred in targeted Islamist strikes on the forces in Jammu and Kashmir. The attack today, viewers, where the security forces have lost 5 more of their brave hearts, is but the latest. Viewers, 4 army and 1 police personnel have been killed in gunfight in Doda, joint operation of Rashtriya Rifles and Jammu and Kashmir Police in the Desa forests. 1 officer among 4 army personnel were killed in this gunfight. Terror attack by Jaish-linked Kashmir Tigers group, viewers, is what we are being told. Search operations in the Desa forest to find the terror hideouts is still underway. Viewers, of course, India will always honor the sacrifices of its martyrs. Captain Brijesh Thapa, Naik D. Rajesh, Sepoy Bijendra, Sepoy Ajay. Our viewers are completely and totally viewers, committed to the cause. Even viewers, posthumously they will be remembered and respected by those who encourage commitment of this level. Viewers, the Islamists are not just targeting security personnel, but also scores of innocents. The attacks on civilians, you'll remember the Riyasi attack, are most terrifying because they are random, cowardly ambushes designed to arouse terror in unsuspecting minds, lulled into complacency by scenes of topical normality. It is true, film halls have opened in the troubled geography for the first time in 4 decades. Curfews and intifada are fading from the headlines, and trade and tourism is picking up. But the recent spike in violence reveals the caste of revanchists, religious obscurantists, and Pakistan's mercenaries are just as committed to prosecuting a case for azadi or self-rule at gunpoint, viewers. Many who are championing the need to restore political rights will tell you that these elements cannot be allowed to hold democracy hostage. They will point you in the direction of the just concluded Lok Sabha elections. They will cite the impressive record turnout as evidence that the people of the region are no longer alienated from the mainstream, that they are keen on becoming equal stakeholders in India's story. Viewers, they will say that it is incumbent upon the government of the day to ensure that these elections are held. It is incumbent on the government of the day to stop, cauterize the cross-border terror. Listen in first, viewers, to some of these responses that have triggered a blame game.
अफसोस ये है कि there is no accountability. By now, the head should have rolled. The DG should have been sacked by now. Because जो इस वक्त हो रहा है पिछले 32 months में almost 50 soldiers have lost their lives. Nobody is being held accountable. और जो इस वक्त के DG हैं, he is more, busy with fixing things politically. उनका जॉब है PDP के लोग कैसे तोड़े जाए, लोगों को कैसे हरास किया जाए, उनको कैसे धमकाया जाए, जर्नलिस्ट को कैसे तंग किया जाए।
आतंकियों के हौसले बुलंद हैं और वो जम्मू रीजन में आ गए और सीधे हमारे सेना पर हमला कर रहे हैं। और मोदी जी इटली और रूस में शांति की बात कर रहे हैं। अरे थोड़ा तो सीखो, इंदिरा जी से प्रेरणा लो और देश के सीमाओं की सुरक्षा अजेय करो।
Viewers, obviously accountability must be sought and it must in fact be enforced. But viewers, apart from a security response to the cross-terror attacks, cross-LOC rather, terror attacks, viewers, this thesis of holding elections, because somehow those elections will prove to be the silver bullet, this thesis is true only up to a point. There is no doubt that the Lok Sabha election, the first to be held after the abrogation of Article 370, has reduced the physical, emotional and psychological gap between the people of Jammu and Kashmir, especially residents of the valley and the Indian state. But the Lok Sabha elections have also revealed that the interface between the people and the state, the contenders, are still deeply aligned to separatist and theocratic impulses that led to the troubles, viewers, in the first place. Security concerns remain, viewers, and there is no guarantee that revoking president's rule could lead to, in any way, the stemming of militancy. In fact, it could even compromise national security. Political instability, the region's political landscape is highly polarized, and revoking president's rule could lead to political instability, even chaos. The central government has initiated various development projects in the region which could be derailed if president's rule is revoked. At this point, we must pay attention, viewers, to the incumbent DGP of Jammu and Kashmir, R.R. Swine. He may have been impolitic. He may have upset people like Mehbooba Mufti, but his assessment on why the region has burned is spot on. Swain has said Pakistan successfully infiltrated all important aspects of civil society thanks to so-called mainstream or regional politics in the valley. There is ample evidence to show that many had mastered the art of running with the hare and hunting with the hound, which left both the common man and the security forces bewildered, frightened and confused. Unquote, viewers. Viewers, let me tell you that those situations, those conditions still obtain. And they obtain in a manner that is very, very obvious. Just look back. In fact, just look back at the Lok Sabha elections. What did we see there, viewers? We saw a highly polarized campaign with contenders playing the parochial card. So much so that one of the 6 contenders elected to parliament is a flaming separatist, viewers, who is serving time in jail. Let's not forget, he's serving time in jail for alleged links to Pakistan's deep state. Engineer Rashid's victory was flagged by former Jammu and Kashmir Chief Minister Omar Abdullah, no less, as a development that will empower secessionists. Indeed, what is the guarantee that the prospective assembly elections won't end up being hijacked, viewers, once again, only this time to test the appeal of Kashmiri separatism among voters? The lordships of the Supreme Court may ask themselves to what extent they are willing to go to indulge their desire to play to the democratic gallery, viewers. They must ask themselves this question. There is still time. I want to open this up. Let's ask some basic questions tonight, viewers. These are important questions. Umesh Talashi is here with us. General G.D. Bakshi, defense expert, is there with us. Sushil Pandit, a Kashmiri activist, and Abhijit Iyer Mitra, needs no introduction, senior fellow of the IPCS. I want to first begin with General Bakshi tonight. General Bakshi, yes, we are hearing so much talk that we must hold elections, that we must return Kashmir to the political process. But is this the right time? I feel that the time has come perhaps to strengthen central rule.
I tend to agree, Rahul. The simple fact is that in the last 3 to 4 years, Pakistan's ISI, Pakistan's army, has made a concerted effort to rekindle terrorism south of the Pir Panjals. North of the Pir Panjals, at the time we revoked Article 370, it's my personal view that we should have revoked it many decades earlier. Be that as it may, we revoked it, and prior to revoking, we super saturated the valley with troops. This, increased force level has its own dynamic. We were threatened with rivers of blood and this and that, but at the end of the day, the separatists could not do a damn. They couldn't do anything apart from making loud noises, and that too in Pakistan. That is the logic of force levels. But concomitantly, we reduced the force levels from south of the Pir Panjals. I was the GOC Romeo force in 2004-2005 when we broke the back of terror. We finished terrorism in that particular area. For 10 years there was peace after I had left. But then came in that measure of complacency, and then the army decided rightly that this is a dormant area, why do we need to waste troops here? So let's take them away to where they are more required, and troops were pulled out. When I was there, I had 18 battalions. 7-8 years down the line, they were reduced to 7. And I don't know what the present force deployment is, but it is far, far less than the optimal. So there is this force dilution in Rajouri, Poonch, Riyasi, Kathua, and uniform force, as you are aware, was taken away to Ladakh. You gave an opening, the ISI has taken the fullest advantage. And then something worst happened, Rahul, which the country must know, and we must correct it. During COVID, for 3 years, we stopped all recruitment. Every year, 60,000 boys retire. 60 into 3 is 1,80,000. Who in his right mind has decided to cut the army by almost 2 lakh troops? When your battle is going to be all in the mountains, whether against China, whether against Pakistan, mountains eat up troops. For God's sake, restore that cut in troops. It has disrupted the CI grid. How are these casualties taking place? There is no CI grid. There is no road opening. And you've achieved that satisfaction of cutting the flab in the Indian army. I think you cut it too damn close to the bone.
Okay, so
in your
those are operational questions.
Please, I'll just finish, Rahul.
Yes.
You have a trailer in front of your eyes in the Russia-Ukraine war.
Yeah.
Is Russia short of weapons? We were told we are cutting manpowers to get weapons. Is Russia short of weapons? They were short of manpower, and it showed.
Yes.
They had to call up 3 lakh reservists and then recruit 5 lakh more. Do you want to do that in the middle of a battle?
That's a valid point.
You've created situations which you will have to redress.
That's a valid point.
Serious problem.
Let's discuss that also, but we must address the central, the elephant in the room, so to speak. And I want to bring in the National Conference spokesperson, Mr. Umesh Talashi. I want to also bring in Mr. Iyer Mitra as well as Mr. Pandit. Mr. Umesh Talashi, I don't understand why this constant demand that we must return to the electoral process. Should we hold elections so that more engineer Rasheeds can make it to the legislature? Is that what people want, politicians such as you? Because let me tell you, the contenders who are standing for these elections, whether they are from your party or from beyond, are the same faces. The same faces who DGP Swain said were the reason why we had trouble in the first place, why Pakistan's agenda got mainstreamed.
Well, Rahul, I can definitely understand what you're pointing towards, but the point is, we've been under president's rule from last 5-6 years, and I don't see any good things happening in Jammu and Kashmir. So we have seen back-to-back killings. We have seen that earlier it was Kashmir, which was bleeding. Now it's entire Jammu, it's entire Pir Panjal area, which is bleeding, and there is no accountability, right? So you're pointing towards the elections. So tell me what good has happened in last 5-6 years. We have seen minority killings at peak. We have seen security forces, our brave soldiers losing their lives. So what good has happened under president's rule? And at the time of the accountability, we haven't seen any sort of accountability except from a tweet from the Lieutenant.
Can I ask you, Mr. Talashi?
Sure. Yeah.
Can I ask you one specific question? I agree. There must be accountability from the commanders, as General Bakshi says, for actually having pruned the number of forces, etc., and the other missteps. I understand all of that. Yes.
No. What
one
else
second,
are you
just one
getting
second.
from
When
the-
you say
No.
nothing has changed, 1 second, sir, just 1 second. Bear me out.
Sure.
For the first time, you have cinema halls that are open. For the first time, you have tourism and trade booming in the valley. One second, let me just finish.
Just a second. Let me
तलाशी
finish.
साहब आपने
Well,
बोला था ना, मैं
I'll-
एक मिनट
I'll
एक दो
come to
चीजें
your
आप
point.
देखिए,
Sure,
we shouldn't
sure.
speak over
Go
each
ahead.
other. Let us
Go
keep
ahead.
this civil. Let us be
Okay.
patient with each other. Pelters are no longer on the streets. Kids are in schools. You don't have a situation where people are running around with bags of money to bring people out of schools or burn down schools. You don't have the kind of strife that we have seen over the last 15-20 years in Jammu and Kashmir. We have corrupt politicians who are behind bars today. We have politicians who have links to separatists who are behind bars. We have separatists who are behind bars. We have the murderers of Kashmiri Hindus who are jailed. A lot has changed. But I want to ask you something, Mr. Umesh Talashi. You talk about accountability. We must ask questions. Of course, we must ask questions. Has the National Conference taken out even one march through the streets of Srinagar? Forget about any other part of the state or the territory, saying that never in my name will Islamist terror be tolerated, that we love our security forces, that we are ready to take on terrorists ourselves on behalf of our security forces, that we condemned outright Pakistan.
Look, Rahul,
Instead, what we have, sir, what we have is one of your top leaders who still advocates for talks, who still advocates for talks with Pakistan. Why?
Okay, let me answer your question. Okay,
Yeah.
let me
Where
answer
is
your
your
question.
accountability?
You're talking about cinema halls and you're talking about those
Sir,
cosmetic
where is your
changes in Kashmir.
accountability? I'm
Okay,
asking
okay,
you.
let me-
Why
let me-
aren't you
let me answer your
holding these
question.
terrorist
We
organizations
are
accountable?
holding- We do. If you go to the recent statement of
No,
Dr.
I want to
Farooq
ask you,
Abdullah,
sir,
he was
where are
very
these
clear.
marches? Where is
He
the
was
physical? No,
very
again, you're
clear.
saying beyond a
Look,
couple of tweets.
marches
I'm sorry.
Look, we have been condemning these terror attacks, right, from day one. We never were in favor of it.
Sir,
and we
can I
still
ask you a
do,
question?
Right?
Can I ask
We
you a
still
question?
do. Now,
Can I ask you? No,
rather
no,
than
don't talk.
holding- no,
You know,
let me
this
finish.
symbolic,
Don't
this
interrupt.
symbolic
Don't
token,
interrupt. No, don't
token
interrupt.
condemnation will
Let me
not work. I
finish.
want to ask you a
Rather
question.
than holding-
Should Omar
rather than
Abdullah's
holding
uncle,
the-
should
rather
Omar
than
Abdullah's
holding-
uncle, will he,
rather than
no,
holding
will
the
he stand
government
for election?
accountable-
Will Omar Abdullah's
Let me-
uncle
let me-
stand
let
for
me
election?
answer you.
You answer me that
Let
question.
Let me ask you something. Rather than holding the government accountable at this point in time, you're still asking what are the regional parties doing. See, we are in crisis. Our security forces are being killed. Civilians are being killed. We are fear stricken. Jammu is under siege. And rather than asking these questions to the government of the day, you don't have a single representative from the BJP here who's
Mr.
going to answer these questions.
Mr.
Let me
No,
finish.
Mr.
Rather than
Talashi, your
attacking
point is
and
well
diverting
taken.
this,
Your point is
no,
well
rather than
taken.
diverting
The
the
center
topics and
needs to be
asking
asked
the
the
regional
questions and they
parties,
need to be
we
asked the
condemn
tough
it. We
questions. Why aren't
strongly
head
condemn
rolling?
it.
I am asking that
We
question. But I
said
want
it
you to.
earlier.
No, 1 second, Mr.
I said,
Talashi.
let me finish.
I am
We
asking
said
you
it
now.
earlier. Do
I am
what you
asking you
deem
now.
fit.
Excuse
Yeah.
me. Will Omar
Sure.
Abdullah's uncle, for instance, get a ticket to stand for the election? And should he get a ticket to stand for the elections? I'm asking you this fundamental question, yes or no?
Well, should or should not? That depends
I'm asking
on
you.
the. That's a, that.
I'm
No,
asking you,
I cannot look.
should he stand for another election, yes or no?
Well, it's a democracy, right? It's a democracy. Let people
Viewers,
decide it.
who am
Let
I
people
talking about
decide
here?
it.
I'm talking about
Let
an
people
individual.
decide it.
I'm talking
Let
about an
people decide
individual
it.
who flies the banner of Pakistan in the valley, viewers. And we are being told it's a democracy, so what the hell? Let him stand for elections. Let Engineer Rashid's, hundreds of them, stand for elections.
It's a democracy.
Viewers, then it
let
becomes a
people stand for
democracy.
election.
Then it
Right.
becomes a
And now-
democracy.
no,
When
no, no, no.
separatists are
Let
going
me-
to stand
you
for elections,
haven't-
it becomes a democracy. When people
So
who
ask
don't
these
have any
questions
faith
to
in
the
the Indian
government.
constitution
You
stand
ask
for
these
elections, then it's a
questions to
democracy. There is
government
no
of the day.
accountability at the political level.
You have to ask these questions to the government of the
Okay,
day,
viewers.
not a regional
Let me bring
party.
in. Let
you
me bring
ask
in.
this question
Let
to
me
the
bring
government
in.
of the
Let
day.
me bring in Sushil Pandit and Abhijit Iyer Mitra. Sushil Pandit, let me first ask you to ask some questions of the National Conference spokesperson. Yes, these attacks should not be taking place. Yes, our security grid should be in place. Yes, we should have more deployment of force and troop levels in Jammu. But am I going to be today told that in 1 month, if we have elections, those elections will be without fear and without favor, and they will be genuinely free in the shadow of terror? Am I supposed to expect this, Sushil Pandit?
Rahul, this is a very pertinent question, and you are indeed pointing to the elephant in the room. Let me just cite an example. You mentioned Engineer Rashid, who is currently the Honorable MP from Baramulla. You know who his predecessor was? He was from same party that one of the panelists is, Mr. Talashi. His name was Akbar Lone.
Yes.
He has the dubious distinction of being the Speaker of the Assembly, and as an MLA, he shouted Pakistan Zindabad not only in the Assembly. He started his campaign for Lok Sabha in 2019 with the, again, same slogan, Pakistan Zindabad. Now, whether he is from a mainstream party like National Conference or whether it is Engineer Rashid, who's a lone ranger, both are chips of the same block, Tweedledee and Tweedledum, and this constituency has returned them in succession, one after the other. Mainstream politics is steeped with running with the hare and hunting with the hound kind of approach. And therefore, it wouldn't be an exaggeration to call them the Trojan horse of separatism in Kashmir. They have harbored it. They benefit from it, they play hide and seek with it, and they run circles around India just because they take an oath on the Constitution of India. We are happy no end that they are part of the mainstream politics and they engendered and fostered democracy in Kashmir. Nothing can be farther from truth. I am afraid, why are we not acting against them? Why are there any court cases, no charge sheets? Why aren't they being prosecuted for their actions in the past? Why don't they face the consequences of their crimes? So this is a huge weakness within the system. Number two, elections will time and again throw up separatism and separatist politicians because we have not addressed the problem beyond surface.
Yes.
Just cessation of stone pelting and booming tourism cannot be the end-all and be-all of fighting against jihad in Kashmir. Superficially, you can restore some kind of semblance of normalcy, a suggestion of calm, but they change tactics overnight. From Kalashnikovs, they resort to pistols and targeted killings.
Yes.
From stone pelting, they start a different kind of intifada And this is what we are faced with.
And the problem is, viewers, that the mainstream politician in Jammu and Kashmir is not standing up to this. Abhijit Iyer Mitra, would you agree with me? And therefore, this great endeavor by the Supreme Court to set a deadline before the 30th of September to hold Jammu and Kashmir is very suspect.
So it's not only do they not stand up to it, Rahul, it's they actually encourage all of this. You see, because this has been their modus operandi for the longest period of time. Omar Abdullah has one standard line that he always gives, which is talk to Pakistan, talk to Pakistan. Pakistan is a stakeholder, talk to Pakistan. That is what the Pakistanis want him to say. Mehbooba Mufti is essentially the political face of the Jamaat-e-Islami, and the militant face of the Jamaat-e-Islami is the Hizbul Mujahideen, right? So both these leaders or both these factions really, they are doing exactly what the Pakistanis want them to do. Nothing more, nothing less. Now, do they know what they're doing or are they clueless about it? I really don't know. But, this is what the game has been. Now, we need to understand, if you jog your memory back to Punjab, when the insurgency ended out there, we had very significant instances of terror that happened afterwards. We need to remember this isn't the reignition of an insurgency. These are significant sporadic terror attacks happening, which will always happen at the tail end of an insurgency. Why are they happening right now? That is the question we need to ask. First is, Pakistan has to prove first and only thing is Pakistan has to prove its worth to China. Its only real worth to China comes from showing that it can bog down India in a place like Kashmir. So if you notice, all these things are, like General Bakshi said, happening south of the Pir Panjal range. Why? Because they want to move troops south from the China border to the Pir Panjal range and show the Chinese masters that they can actually bring some tangible benefits. Then, once they've succeeded in that, they also need to show that they are capable at least of generating some narrative about an insurgency starting up, because they're in desperate financial straits. The Chinese never fell for their hokum. The Americans did. The Americans cut off aid. The Chinese aren't really giving any aid. And now they desperately need their bailout packages and things like that. Pakistan's future depends on this. But it's very important, while I agree with General Bakshi that heads need to roll, more important than heads rolling is, have we learned our lessons from this? Because the lessons are, if you go back to Punjab, that this kind of tail-end insurgency will always have high spikes. Do you remember Beyant Singh, the Chief Minister of Punjab, was killed in a bomb blast?
Yes.
Where after the insurgency was over. That was a peak terror activity. It wasn't a continuation of the insurgency. We need to remember all of this. Now, what is the worst case scenario out here? In effect, I actually believe that they're playing into the BJP's hands, the Pakistanis, because let's say this situation gets out of control. It is not going to get out of control. It's really, like I said, big terrorism incidents. And there is president's rule. The government will just have to go back to the Supreme Court and tell them, well, buddy, your orders are unrealistic, reconsider. That is good for who? That is good for security, because the last people we want are these two corrupt dynasts coming back into power.
Well, it's not just about them. There are all sorts of other political parties that are headed by all sorts of other skullduggerous characters. Let's be honest, absolutely. Whether they are proxies for the government or for the BJP, I don't know. Many people have suggested that the alternative is no better.
But the solution, of course, is to remove revenue and security from the state subjects out there. The center has that provision in union territories to remove revenue, and revenue is particularly important because we know both families, and in fact, almost every politician in Kashmir is horribly corrupt. There is not a single honest politician in Kashmir.
Well, these are, of course, allegations that have to be tested, viewers, all the time, in court, etc., etc. But let me bring back the National Conference spokesperson, Mr. Talashi. Mr. Talashi, you see, yes, there has been a failure, a security failure. I completely agree with you, sympathize with you, and accept this point. Neither am I making the case that, political rights must be denied to Kashmiris in perpetuity. That is not also something that is acceptable. Let's be very honest about this. Whether it's the Supreme Court or it's the government at the center, they're all sort of keen that the political process returns to the valley in the form of elections, etc., etc. So let's get these two things out of the way. I just want to ask you, when there is such a wide berth for terror, then how will we stop it? When there is such a political consensus there, And there is this sort of support. I mean, if people who are chanting slogans in favor of Pakistan in the assembly are asked to then apologize and reaffirm their oath to the Indian constitution, are going to stand for election again and again, then how do you expect things to become okay? You're normalizing
Look,
violence against the Indian state, separatism,
we-
alienation.
I'll explain it to you, Rahul. We never favor violence. You know, you're talking about waving these flags and talking about Pakistan. Let law take its own course. But the point is, what is the government of the day doing? See, regional
agree with you,
parties
sir.
can't
The
help.
government of the
No,
day,
no, no,
hang
no.
it.
The point,
Hang
you should
hang
have
it.
somebody.
I am
You
not,
should have
but
somebody.
you
What
need to
do
be
you-
accountable
what
also for
do
your
you-
own omissions, sir. That's not fair. Yes, I am telling you, the government of the day, we need to put pressure on it, as General Bakshi very unbiasedly exposed the shortcomings, okay? But you also need to take some onus, sir. You are political stakeholders there. You are the main stakeholders there. And are
Did
you
we
going to say
incite
that
violence?
let it be
Did
to
we-
democracy,
did we-
Akbar
no.
Loan
Did we-
and
No, no, no,
uncle
no,
of
no.
Omar Abdullah and all these people who are sort of cheerleaders for Pakistan are allowed to contest elections?
Article 370 was scrapped. Since then,
But sir,
you know,
the
we are
Supreme
under
Court has
president's
ruled in the
rule.
favor of Article
Elections-
370's
Listen,
abrogation.
Listen to me.
Are you aware?
Let me finish it. Did any of the NC people, did anyone from National Conference start pelting stones? We never. We always talk about peace. We never talked about violence. So what accountability are you expecting from us?
Okay.
What sort of accountability are
Mr.
you
Pandit
expecting
wants to
from us?
respond. He might illuminate this debate.
Sure.
Yes.
Let me jog his memory to Farooq Abdullah's speech from Hazrat Bal, where he announced publicly that stone pelters are patriots, Watan Parast, and they are not pelting stones for becoming MLAs or ministers or MPs. They are doing it for their cause. And he said it openly to Hurriyat from that platform that we are not enemies. Let's work together. That was not too long ago. And you've been patronizing them. You have let out at least 80 terror suspects between July and November 1989 that unleashed insurgency in Kashmir. This is documented by none other than Indrajit Bhadwar in the March issue of India Today, 1990. Please go ahead and see.
Okay,
And then you
about
flee.
these allegations,
Then you
let
flee
law take
away
its
from
own
Kashmir
course.
when everything
Let-
blows up.
No, you
Law
can't keep
take-
saying let
let
law take
law
its own
takes
course,
its
let law
own
take it.
course,
These
you
are
know.
homilies,
You've
sir.
been
These are
making
very
the-
pious
no, you've been
homilies. Now,
making the
hang on.
allegations. Look, you've been
Viewers,
making
look,
the allegations.
there has to be
You've been making the
accountability.
allegations.
Okay, sir, please. Look, there can be no allegation. Akbar Loan himself chanted in the assembly. There is a record of it. There are films of it. There is CCTV of it. What kind of proof is required?
Well, that's what I said.
Is he still a member of your
Let-
party, sir?
He is indeed. He's a member of the.
Why
government.
should he be? Where is the accountability? If someone stands up in your political party and chants Pakistan Zindabad,
Well,
should he not be shown the
made
door?
It very clear. We made it very clear at that point of time that it was his.
You can make it clear,
statement
sir,
in
but these are
personal
recurrent.
capacity.
You see that it's
In
basically
personal
viewers the
capacity,
wide berth
National
that is given,
Conference
and that's the
doesn't
problem.
endorse. We
Fundamentally,
as a party
this is
doesn't
the problem.
endorse this.
Okay,
We
sir.
as a
Look,
party doesn't
by
endorse
not taking action against this individual, by not expelling him, in a manner you are endorsing it. Now, we can quibble over the exact semantics of it, but it comes across as somebody who's given a wide berth to individuals like this. Now, viewers, you take your pick. Yes, ask the questions. Ask Modi, ask Shah, ask the defense minister. Ask them all the questions. But how can we continue to give a wide berth to separatism, to hate against the Indian constitution in the Indian state, and expect things to change in Kashmir? The political actors there, the mainstream politicians also have a role to play.
They did, in fact.
Well,
No, I don't know. I don't understand.
Then you judge these individuals who come out here and say, no, the law will take its own course. Then you judge them. And then you have to ask yourself, why Engineer Rashid made it to Parliament? Because these are the questions that need to be asked fundamentally if you want Kashmir to turn the corner. Otherwise, we can continue to pressure Modi. At the most, what can you do? Invade Pakistan. And the moment the media asks for that kind of response, 150 other YouTubers and other so-called sundry activists will say, oh, there is jingoism going on national media, how irresponsible they are. If General Bakshi makes that case that we should cross the LOC and do some damage, he will be accused of jingoism, of starting a nuclear war. This is a problem, viewers. You're damned if you do, damned if you don't. But no one will take accountability at any level. I want to move on, viewers.